What's up YouTube, Dell here from Zephyr, and today I'm going to bring you the next part of the Chronicle lore, and that is going to be Dogmatika. So when you look at the Chronicles deck and you open them up, the direct deck that you're going to want to go for and build will of course be branded, which is going to focus around Fallen of Albaz. But what about focusing around Dogmatika Ecclesia and the other Dogmatika monsters? Well, that's exactly where this build will come into play. Now, this will require a lot more cards that are outside the Chronicle decks as it currently stands, but they shouldn't be that hard to get hold of, and they are relatively cheap in the right place. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take you through the main deck, I'm going to take you through the extra deck, and I'll take you through the side deck as well, so you've got everything you need to put a deck like this together. Now, to build this for Genesis, it does take quite a bit of adaptation because there are a lot of cards in this deck that are going to cost you points. So you've got like Elder Entity Ints, which are going to be 7 points, but then you also have Nadir Servant, which is like the best card you're going to want to aim for. So for a Genesis adaptation, you might need to do a lot more kind of work for it. But just to give you a baseline of what it would look like if you want to be playing it in Modern, which can be very, very fun and very, very powerful, this will be a great starting point. So with that out of the way, please smash that like button, hit that notification bell, and subscribe so you don't miss out on any more upcoming content. Diving headfirst into the profile, we're going to be starting off with our Dogmatika Ecclesia, the Virtuous. So this is one of your, I wouldn't say it's your main starter of the deck because there is one that is not a Dogmatika that is your main starter of the deck. But what Ecclesia will give you is it gives you access to your Dogmatika spells, traps, and monsters. Now, this is going to give you the best benefit in able to kind of push your field forward. And then on top of that as well, it's the fact that it can't be destroyed by a card special from the extra deck is really, really important. So it really does make it a bit awkward for your opponent to try and deal with. And throughout the rest of the engines in this deck, we're going to be able to try and push through so that we can control the extra deck monster on the field. Like, you don't want to rely on your opponent to have an extra deck monster on the field or anything else like that. You want to be able to control very easily that through a normal summon, whether it resolves or whether it gets negated, that you can then turn it into an extra deck monster and ideally turn that extra deck monster to another one. So you've got an extra deck monster in the graveyard, giving you full consistency to get Ecclesia to the field, to search out Dogmatika Maximus, to then extend your plays to get Dogmatika Maximus to the field, and so on and so forth. Now, the most costly card right now for the Dogmatika strategy is going to be the brand new Dogmatika Fleur-de-Lis, the Thunderbolt. Now, this has had a bit of a weird fluctuation. And what I mean by that is when it first came out, if you were lucky and you were fast enough, you were able to pick these up for like £5 a copy. Like, I got really lucky with quite a few of these. It then went up to £20 a copy, which was wild. And then it kind of settled back down to about £10 a copy. Now, the reason you want to go for this card is that during the main phase, if a monster is specialed from the extra deck, is on the field, you get a quick effect, so yours or your opponent. You gain a quick effect to special from this card from the hand, so quite like the original Fleur-de-Lis that I'll talk about a little bit later on. Then if this card is special from the hand, you get to set a Dogmatika trap directly from the deck, and it can be activated this turn, while your opponent controls a Fusion, Synchro, Xyz, or Link with 2500 or more attack. So it's going to be very, very particular, like your opponent needs to have that on the field, but with the current game state, you will be able to deal with that. The only downside is it doesn't include rituals, so the Mitsurugi matchup is going to be a little bit awkward. You can only use each of the effects once per turn, but the idea is the cards that you can go for are going to be these cards here. Now, I would highly advise you only play 2 of these 3 cards I'm going to show you, but I wanted to show you the range of the ones you want to go for and why I would narrow it down to these 3 cards. So, the first one is Dogmatika Punishment, the next one is Quad Dogmatika Beast, and the final one is the Dogmatika Turgy. Now, Punishment is probably going to be the most direct one you're going to be able to go for, because the idea is your opponent's already going to have a monster on the field in order for you to get the Fleur-de-Lis to the field and then be able to activate it that turn. So the benefit of this one is you target a face-on monster on the field that your opponent controls, you send a monster with an equal or higher attack from the extra deck to the graveyard, and then if you do, you destroy that monster. You can't special from the extra deck for the rest of the turn until the next turn, after this card resolves as well. So it's going to be a elongated stretch that you can't go into the extra deck, but that's really, really fine. The biggest issue with this is that to get your Fleur-de-Lis, your opponent needs to have a monster with 2500 or more attack to activate your trap card the turn it's set, which then really limits the targets you're going to have in your extra deck in order to send. So it's not as disruptive or as easy to go, cool, send Elder Entity Ints, because unless your opponent has a monster that is less than 2500 and one that is more than 2500 to use it as a quick effect, then you'll be able to deal with both. So it can be a little bit situational, but Dogmatika Punishment is probably the first Dogmatika trap card that goes in the deck regardless. Then the alternative ones would be one of these 2 cards here, which I think is the best option for you. So the Quad Dogmatika Beast is the brand new one from Doom of Dimensions. So you target a monster in your graveyard or banishment, you send to the graveyard one monster from your extra deck or a Dogmatika monster from your deck with attack higher than or equal to that target. And if you do, you special summon that target. Until the end of your next turn after this card resolves, you can't special summon from the extra deck. So the idea is it gives you a bit more recurrence from the graveyard, but the benefit of something like this is it gives you that ability to extend your plays turn 1 as long as your opponent has a monster from the extra deck. So keeping in mind that that's going to lean into the K9 strategy a lot more to give you a bit more advantage from it. But this one is kind of one of them nice ones that even if you do have to grind the game out a bit, it will allow you to regain a bit of resource. The one that steps that up one additional level is going to be your Dogmatika Turgi. So you ritual summon a Dogmatika ritual monster from the hand or deck by tributing a Dogmatika monster or a ritual fusion or synchro monster from your field whose total levels equal exactly that level of the ritual monster that you want to ritual summon. If this card is in your graveyard, you get to banish it to then target 2 Dogmatika monsters with different levels in the grave and add one of them to the hand, place the other on the bottom of the deck. But you can only use one effect per turn. So it's quite nice that, again, if you're trying to keep this in mind, that ideally your first port of call is to play this as a quick effect off of the back of your Thunderbolt. That will then give you the ability to ritual summon from the deck. And the one you're going to want to go for is you're going to go for the White Knight of the Dogmatika. So the benefit of something like this is that when you're looking at your Thunderbolt, it's kind of like your 1-card combo. Because your Thunderbolt would then get you access to your Turgi. Your Turgi can then tribute off the Thunderbolt to get you to the White Knight of Dogmatika. And then the White Knight of Dogmatika, so it cannot be special. You cannot special summon from the extra deck. And if your opponent activates a card or effect except during the damage step, you send a monster from the extra deck to the grave. And if you do, you look at your opponent's extra deck and send one monster from it to the graveyard. This card gains attack equal to half the combined attack of that monster sent to the graveyard until the end of the turn. So it's your kind of switcheroo. Because what you'd be doing there is you're basically turning your Fleur Delis into Turgi into White Knight. That is entirely optional. I would still play White Knight as it does have 500 attack, which is really important for your Nadir Servant, because it means that technically if you need to get access to a ritual spell or ritual monster, you can activate your Nadir Servant, search out your White Knight, send in Herald of the Arclight from the extra deck to the graveyard, and then search out the ritual spell. So you're getting all the pieces you need in order to kind of present a monster to the field. Entirely up to you, flexible on the Turgi or, of course, the Dogmatika Beast. It's entirely up to you. I might as well do the other ritual monster while I'm here. So the other ritual monster is your Dogmatika Alba Zoa. Now, this is the one big additional benefit of playing your Dogmatika Turgi, because you're only playing one of these cards. Like the Thunderbolt you're playing 3 of, Ecclesia you're playing 3 of, but you're only playing one Alba, you're playing one Maximus and one Fleur Delis, so you'll be able to cut them down. And that's where the graveyard effect of your Turgi really comes into play, because that's then going to give you the ability to target those, add one back to the hand, recycle one back to the deck, and it means you don't need to clog your deck down or clog your hand down with these high level monsters that you need that counter ritual spell for. So it's like, okay, I've got a ritual spell in my hand, cool. My Alba Zoa will add that to my hand. Or it's one of the ones you do it the other way around, or your Maximus, because your Maximus can then technically, depending on what you have in your extra deck, lead you into your ritual spells. Keeping in mind, unfortunately, because we no longer have free Herald of the Arclight accessible to us, that's going to be a little bit more difficult to do, but once you've resolved the Herald of the Arclight, there are ways to recycle it with Cyframe Lord Omega, which can be very, very important, because it'll mean that you can utilize your Herald of the Arclight multiple times, which is really, really important. Then for the other Dogmatika monsters, we do have the one original Dogmatika Fleur Delis the Knighted, and then one Dogmatika Maximus. Most of you should know how Fleur Delis works, but just in case you don't, during the main phase, if a monster is specialed from the extra deck is on the field, you get to special summon this card from the hand. If you control another Dogmatika monster, you get to non-target negate the effects of one face-up monster on the field, which is really, really powerful. On top of that as well, when your Dogmatika monster declares an attack, you can make all Dogmatika monsters you currently control gain 500 attack, which is really important because you start to make your Alba Zoa 4500, so that's how you deal with like Lunar Lights. Not that you couldn't deal with Lunar Lights on the base of 4k anyway, but then that would lead you into making Maximus at least 2k, Ecclesia at least 2k, 2k, and then your Thunderbolt will also be a base of 3k, as well as your original Fleur Delis on top of that. I kind of remember that I skipped over the Alba Zoa's effect, but this one cannot be ritual summoned except by a Dogmatic Calamity or another Dogmatika card effect. Dogmatika monsters you control are unaffected by the activated effects of your opponent's fusion, synchro, Xyz, and links. During your main phase, you can make your opponent choose and apply one of these effects. You in this effect means your opponent. For every 2 cards in your opponent's extra deck, send 1 card from their hand or their extra deck to the graveyard. So they will do that. They will go, okay, I've got 15 in my extra deck. I've got to send X, Y, and Z. Or return all fusions, synchro, XEs, and link monsters you control, so your opponent controls, back to the extra deck. So it's either kind of like a complete field clear if they're an extra deck heavy deck, or it's going to rip their extra deck apart. So again, Mitsurugi is not going to be your best matchup, but every other matchup you'll still be very, very good. Like, you rip away all your opponent's Malice monsters, you rip away all your opponent's, like, Dracotale monsters, and so on and so forth. Then moving on to the spell cards. Now, these spell cards are absolutely incredible for the deck. Dogmatika Matrix. I can't wait until the Chronicle anime gets to this point here, because this is where once the Despiers get involved, this is where it starts to get really, really dark, which is awesome. So when this card is activated, you add a Dogmatika Ritual monster or a Dogmatika Ritual spell from the deck to the hand. Then if your opponent controls a monster, you get to add a Dogmatika card from the deck to the hand. Once per turn, if you control a Dogmatika Ritual monster, you get to look at either your player's extra deck and send and send one monster from it to the grave. So you either look at yours and go, cool, I want to send Herald of the Arclight or Natis or Garura for a draw, or you just look at your opponent's extra deck and go, right, that's a core piece, off you go. The Dogmatika Ritual spells you're going to want to go for is the Dogmatika Cabre and your Dogmatic Calamity. So this card could be used to ritual summon any Dogmatika Ritual monster from the hand or grave. You must also treat monsters from the hand or field and or banish fusion synchros from your graveyard, whose total levels equal or exceed the level of the ritual monster you ritual summon. Then if both White Knight of Dogmatika and White Relic of Dogmatika are on the field, you get to look at either your extra deck or your opponent's and send a monster from it to the grave. Now, you can play the White Relic if you want to. I kind of felt that it wasn't as effective as the White Knight, or Zoa is like the core one you go for, but that's entirely up to you if you want to include that one. Then Dogmatic Calamity, it can be used to ritual summon any Dogmatika Ritual monster. You must also treat monsters from the hand or field whose total levels equal exactly the level of the ritual monster, or you get to send one monster from the extra deck to the graveyard whose level equals the level of the ritual monster you ritual summon. For the rest of the turn after this card resolves, you cannot special summon from the extra deck. You can only activate one Dogmatic Calamity per turn. So you can see like how powerful these two cards are. The fact that they're allowing you to send from the extra deck as well is really, really important, because that's just going to give you more direct access, especially with Herald of the Arclight. Less so Herald of the Arclight, more so because the Herald of the Arclight really works with like your Knighted being the level 5, but then it not being a level 4 does make it a little bit awkward, but you kind of want to be sending your Maximus. The idea is you want to be getting your Zoa access with these cards, and that's where you play higher level monsters in the extra deck, and that's when you're going to get the most advantage from it. Then the best card to ever be made for Dogmatikas that isn't a Dogmatika card is free Nadir Servant. Now, I fully understand why this card is called Nadir Servant, because if it was Dogmatika, it would be so incredibly easily searchable. It's insane. So, for those of you unaware, you send a monster from your extra deck to the graveyard and then add a Dogmatika monster or a Fallen of Albaz from the deck or grave to the hand that has attack less than or equal to that sent monster. The benefit of being able to add back from the graveyard is absolutely amazing, because again, when you're trying to recycle on a bit more pace, it's up to you whether you want to go Nadir Servant route and the Dogmatika Turgy, or you're like, okay, I actually want to go with the quad Dogmatika Beast, but I still want ways to recycle. You've got that in Nadir Servant. You can't special summon for the rest of the turn after it resolves, so keep that in mind. Then I am playing the brand new, the Fallen, and the Virtuous. Now, to give this as much kind of context as possible, we need to take a quick deep dive into the extra deck. So for the extra deck, we're playing 2 Albion, the Branded Dragon. Why are we playing Albion, the Branded Dragon? Well, purely for its last line of text, is that during the end phase, if it is sent to the graveyard because it was sent there this turn, you get to add to the hand or set a branded spell or trap from the deck. The Fallen and the Virtuous is always treated as a branded and a Dogmatika card, so very searchable via Ecclesia, but also very searchable by your Albion. It's up to you. You can cut one Albion down should you need to, and that will really open up the door to some other cards from the extra deck, depending on what type of levels you want to play around with, whether you want to play a Typhon, whether you want to be playing other direct targets that could be sent. You could play a very small Fallen of Albaz package in here, being 1 Quem, as it is also a Dogmatika monster, and then Albaz with Grand Grignol and just more interactions in general. But what we're going to go for on this one is you send a monster that mentions Fallen of Albaz from the extra deck to the grave, and then target a face-up card on the field and destroy it. The idea would be is if you hard open this one, you activate it, you send an Albion from the extra deck to the graveyard, you destroy a card, and then during the end phase, the Albion would then set you a second copy that you can then activate to do the exact same thing, send the Albion, set you the third copy. Now, as we are only playing 2 Albion, I guess the question you're going to ask me is, what do you do with the third copy? Well, that's where the secondary effect of this card comes into play. So the secondary effect is if you have an Ecclesia monster in your field or grave, you target a monster in either graveyard and special summon it to your field. So this will allow you to recycle some of your materials from the graveyard, not cards that say can only be special summoned, so keep that in mind. But this will give you the ability to recycle Fleur-Delis, recycle a Dogmatika Maximus. It really will give you a lot to kind of work around with, and that's kind of where you can utilize Thunderbolt very, very nicely. So you will get maximum usage out of this card, and it's one of these ones where you would only search it off of Ecclesia if you already have your other pieces. If you don't have the other pieces, always use Ecclesia to search out the Maximus, the Fleur-de-Lis, and then save this for an Albion search should you need to, because you always have ways to send Albion from the extra deck to the graveyard through Maximus, Nadir Servant, the list goes on and on and on. Carrying on, we are playing 3 Triple Tactics Thrust. Now, the reason we're playing 3 Triple Tactics Thrust and the 1 Triple Tactic Talents is that you have full control when you see the next card I'm about to show you to trigger the effect. So the next card that I'm about to show you is your best normal summon for the deck, being Gen, because Gen will then summon out Ken. Now, if you have played this engine, which I have done in Dark Worlds quite a lot of time, you will find out that you're probably going to see Ken more than you see Gen, which is just the way that it works. It will still do the exact same outcome that you're wanting to try and achieve by giving your opponent a monster, making that monster use its effect. You just get more advantage off of the back of the Gen than you do your Ken. So Gen gives you the ability that if this card, so once per turn, at the end of the battle phase, you return this card from the field to the hand. You can only use each of the following effects once per turn. During your main phase, you get to special summon a Ken from the hand or deck to your opponent's field in defense position. If this card is special summoned by the effect of Ken, discard 1 card. Now keeping in mind that if you're using Ken and special summoning Gen to your opponent's field, it's going to make your opponent discard 1 card. Ken, on the other side of this one, is that if this card is special summoned by the effect of Gen, your opponent, being us, because we would have summoned this to our opponent's field, draws 2 cards, discards 1 card. So we get a nice bit of advantage off of that. Both of these are mandatory effects. They will both trigger. Ken will do the exact same opposite of Gen, so if you normal summon this during the main phase, you have the ability to summon again to your opponent's side of the field. The benefit of that is it can shut down infinite impermanence, so it means your opponent utilises their Ash Blossoms, their Imperms, their Veilers on Gen as early as possible. Or Ken sometimes if you do hard open it. And that will then open up the door that your Fleur-de-Lis may resolve, your Maximus is going to resolve, and everything else in between. Then moving on to the hand trap. So for the hand traps on this one, 3 Mulchomi Fulos, 3 Droll and Lockbird, and 3 Ash Blossom and Joyous Spring. You can make this deck a little bit more aggressive if you want to, and I'm going to show you the side deck to kind of give you a bit of an idea. You're like, right, okay, I'm going second, I don't want to be playing Gen and Ken, what can I put in? Or I want to be going first, I want to take out the Mulchomis, what do I put in? So I'll show you the direct swaps you're going to go for on that one, just to give you a bit more of an idea once we get through the extra deck. So, talking about the extra deck, you're probably very rarely going to summon. So the cards you're going to summon from the extra deck are going to be as follows. Probably like 4, I think it's only 4 cards actually. And some of them are like dealer's choice. And what I mean by that one is, if you don't want to summon them, you don't have to. You don't want to play them, you don't have to. So the one you're probably going to summon more times than not will be your Salmon Great Almirage. Now the reason for this one is this will turn your Gen into an extra deck monster, which then means your Ecclesia is online. You can also then turn your Almirage into a secure Gardener. So this one will then give you the ability to put this monster in the, your Almirage into the graveyard without needing to use its effects. So you don't need another card to do it, which then puts you an extra deck monster in the graveyard that your Maximus can banish, summon itself down, and then start sending stuff from the extra deck. The other 2 Link monsters I'm playing is the 1 Nightmare Phoenix and the 1 SP Little Knight. Just generic spell and trap hate, and then just generic kind of out for everything. Then the cards you're going to send, and we're going to be sending a lot. So, for the Link monsters, we're going to send your Tri-Brigade Arms. Now this would just be a 3500 target for your Dogmatika punishment, which ultimately could send a Ferrojeet, which lets you draw and put 1 back, but then Ferrojeet can also be a Link target if you were to play Ultimate Slayer. I'm currently not playing Ultimate Slayer in the side deck, but that is an option for you. For the XZs that you can send, now keep in mind, you can send these through Maximus, you can't send it through, so you send it through Dogmatika Nadir Servant, you can't use it as ritual material. Neither can you use your Tri-Brigades for that one either, because they don't have levels. But you can send your Agitator, and that just gives you that nice non-target, nice negate. The ones that do have levels that you're going to want to send, Garura for a draw, Natis for a pop, and then 2 Albion just to get you access to those Fallen and the Virtuous, and to have cards that mention Fallen Lavabas to be sent. So this is what I'm saying, you don't ever really want to be sending this with anything apart from the Fallen and the Virtuous, because if you send that with anything bar Fallen of the Virtuous, you're then not going to have another target to then utilize to get the pop effect of the Fallen and the Virtuous, so keep that in mind. And then for the Synchros, these are probably going to be the most important one. So you've got Malong. You don't have to play Malong. The other options, like I said, open up. You can play a 3rd Albion if you want to be really, really leaning into the Fallen and the Virtuous. Malong just gives you that nice target bounce, which is really important. Then the most important ones, you've got your Herald of the Art Light. So search out any ritual spell or monster. You're going to go for your Cypherane Lord and Mega. It's actually really important so that you then have to use its second effect. So if it's in the graveyard, you target one card in either graveyard, shuffle both this card and that card into the from the graveyard back into the deck. So putting these back into the extra deck then means that if I want to send Herald of the Arclight again, I can do. And then the final card is your Despian Lulu Walith. Again, if you play Quem, you'll get a little bit more advantage out of the back of this, but then it will adapt the extra deck to start adding in your Fallen of Albaz targets, like your Mirajay, Lubellion maybe if you want to. But what you're going to be focusing on more times than not on this one is if it is in the graveyard because it was sent there this turn, you special summon a light spellcaster from the hand or deck whose attack equals its own defense. So that's how you're going to be able to get direct access to, going back to her, your Ecclesia. And then your Ecclesia can then search you out of Fleur-Delis, keeping in mind that this is all going to be happening during the end phase, so you're not going to be able to do anything like to push further forward. But the other options you do have as well is you can get access to your Thunderbolt, and you can also get access to the original Fleur-Delis. More times than not, you're probably going to go for the Ecclesia, but that's kind of the options you have available to you. So that's it for the entire main deck and the extra deck. Now to move on to the side deck. Now, on the side deck, as well as my extra deck, so these are currently in my Synchro decks, like my Synchron deck, hence the, Black Rose border sleeves. And then my side deck's a bit of a mess, I'm not going to lie, because these are all in different decks right now. They're just kind of splaying around. But the idea is just to give you a breakdown of cards you're going to want to put in for specific scenarios, cards you're going to want to put in for going first, going second, you name it. So, going first, the cards you're going to want to put in would be 3 Solemns of your choosing. So you can play 1 Judgment, 1 Strike, 1 Scolding if you want to. You can play 3 Warning, entirely up to you. And the Black Goat that lasts. So the Black Goat that lasts is obviously a target to be set off the back of your Triple Tactics Thrust. And I think it's probably like one of the best targets now that Dimensional Barrier is banished. Technically banished? Banned. But you can also play Symbol Archfiends if you wanted to give that a go. If you're having a really bad matchup against Nitsurugi. But even then, I still say play Black Goat that lasts, call Murakumo, and then just lock them out completely. We play a lot of go second cards, but like the balance for going first or second, Cosmic Cyclone, this is just spell and trap. Hey, adapt it as you want to. If you want to play more go second cards, you can do. But the go second cards I'm currently playing are 3 Perulia. Probably like a little bit better for Mitsurugi's, but entirely up to you on this one. You don't have to play Perulia. This can be another go second card like Ultimate Slayer. Cards that you would take out for your Ken and Gen if you're going second, Lava Golem. As already mentioned, you don't really need to rely on your normal summon. The only time it will become an issue is, like, keeping in mind you're going to be going second, right? So there'll be an extra deck monster, or more times than not, there'll be an extra deck monster on the field. So you can Lava Golem your opponent and leave them with an extra deck monster on the field, and then continue to go Ecclesia, Maximus, and everything else in between. And then just because, like, you're quite a control style deck, you can OTK in some scenarios, but I'm not going to be going like Raigeki to Breakers or anything else like that. I quite like Evenly Matched. I think this is one of these cards where your opponents sleep on it. They're like, no one's playing Evenly Matched anymore. And then they choose not to try and play around it, or they choose not to defend against it. And you go, cool. Draw phase, standby, main, battle phase. And then their face drops and they're like, okay. And then it's going to be a bluff. It's going to be a bluff. And you go Evenly Matched and they're like, okay. Now, it's not the best kind of trade-off. You can very easily play Dark Rule No More, because like, if you're able to combo Evenly Matched with Dark Rule No More, you're going to be breaking 99% of the fields. You just need to then be able to play cards that will break it, which is what your Dogmatika Maximus will do, because you send Elder Entity Unts, and then you pop a card and then go on from there. But that's pretty much it for the entire profile. Hopefully this is giving you a bit of an idea to adapt it as you see fit. There's a lot of flexibility in the deck. You don't have to play it directly like this. Like, you can play this as a blind go second version, where you would take out the Kens and Gens and go in for Lava Golems. You could play it as a full-on ritual deck. So you could play the White Relic. You can play more Zoas if you really want to. Honestly, I don't think you need to, but if you want to be a bit more grinding with it, then you can do as well. Anyway, that's it for the entire profile. Any questions at all, by all means, please put in the comments down below. I'm always happy to answer them where able. For now, as absolutely always, stay safe, and of course, happy dueling.